You've probably seen on social media that I've parted ways with Shadowspark Publishing. Let's get some things out of the way. The Determined Ones has been pulled. The pieces that I submitted to the Cozy-ish and Dreamport anthologies have not. If you want a taster of what the Determined Ones is like, you can still have that. Counterstars is still available in the Cozy-ish anthology, and I still get paid for that. So that's still there, and so is Charcoal Rain in Dreamcourt. Number 2, if you're here for gossip, you're not going to find it. And last but not least, on the getting things out of the way front, City of Tiny Lights will not be coming in the V anthology in June. The most important thing to note right now is the Determined Ones is not over. This is not the end. Writing is what I was put on this star-damn planet to do, and that ends when I die. And not a moment sooner. Never give up is not just some slogan-y strapline that I use to sell books. It's not. It's the lifeblood of this compendium. There's a reason it's the tagline for it. There's a reason that that's what I went with. This is not the end. Far from it. I don't know if I'll find another publisher. The querying landscape for thrillers has not improved in the 3 years since I signed my contract, and it's not looking like it's going to change anytime soon. Somehow Romantasy is still going, and historical fantasy is maybe looking like what's next, but it sure doesn't look like it's thriller. We'll see. I mean, trends generally move on pretty quickly, but realistically, who knows? And even so, trying to get an 8-book deal. Also, I don't know if that's what I want. I was pretty set on Self-Pub before Spark Pit came along because I knew my chances, realistically, of getting contracts. It wasn't good then, and it's not now. And also, I just wasn't sure that a publisher was necessarily what I wanted for this particular project. I'm kind of leaning towards Self-Pub right now. We'll see. I'm not making hard decisions on that right now. We'll get there when we get there. As for the exact nature of the Determined Ones and what that's going to look like going forwards, I'm going to lay bare exactly where I'm at. There's no reason for me not to. I have 4 out of 8 books clean. That's Mr. Nekagami and Black Executioner, obviously, Shadow on the Snow, and Snakebite. I used to say that Dead Penstemons was clean, which would make that 5, but it's always been a bit of a problem child, and that's not by any fault of its own. That's on me for that being the first book that I drafted and not knowing at all what I was getting into. It was originally a 400-word flash. Like, I'm dead serious. So I didn't know what I was getting into, I didn't know what the real story was. It needs some work. That's going to be harder than I originally thought because of some things that have changed that I don't really want to talk about, to be honest. Beneath the Moon is still in here. I have not touched it. There is no 1.1 draft, this is what I have. Edits were meant to begin in July. Honestly, I'm glad that I don't have to prepare for that. It could really do with sitting a little longer, and it's something that I've lost a not insignificant amount of sleep over, and yeah, I kind of killed myself to get Shadow on the Snow ready in time. I didn't want to have to do that again, and it was looking like I might, so low-key bullet dodge on that one. Amber Shackles, I am currently drafting, and it's going really well. It could be the strongest start I have ever had to any project. It's going great, and I'm having a really great time with it, which is nice. As Seen on Stage is the only book in the Determined Ones with no words written. There will be some difficult and time-consuming pre-work for that, but it's almost easy to work with. What I'm saying is, the majority of the work is already done. 4 clean books, 1 first draft, 1 somewhat messy but complete draft, and 2 that are basically undrafted. Amber Shackles, as of recording this, is under 10k, and by the time it goes up, it's still going to be under 10k. We're 6 out of 8 complete drafts. Amber Shackles is going quick. Majority of the work, writing-wise, done. So the plan from here, keep writing. On Behind the Pen, I said my best piece of advice was just keep writing, and I've said that for a reason. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get everything together, get everything clean, and go from there. I really just don't want to go through the whole process again of editing one book while marketing another, while drafting another, while... If I don't have to do that, then I'm not going to. And I don't have to anymore, so I'm not. Formatting is the thing I'm genuinely most worried about with looking towards the self-pub route. Given how many people DIY that, I'm sure I can join the crew. I don't really see why not, at the risk of future Jade making my nose more crooked. But given it's something that people do actually do routinely, why not me? I am choosing to see this as an opportunity, first and foremost. Once everything is written, I'm sure there will be things I see in Mr. Nakagami and want to change. Because just of the nature of As Seen on Stage being the final sweeper that ties everything together, there's surely going to be at least one little word choice that kind of doesn't fit. If nothing else, and I do pay that level of attention to these things. And now I can do that. Previously, that would have just been I guess I gotta live with it. Now it doesn't have to be. And there's a lot to be said for that. And also, if you found typos, now is the time to tell me, and I'm dead serious. But beyond that, I can also redesign my covers a little. I love what I have, conceptually, don't get me wrong, but Black Executioner didn't turn out right. I mentioned at the time that the art file glitched, and I thought I caught everything. I thought I'd fixed it. It looks intentional. It doesn't look bad. It looks intentional, but it isn't. And it annoys me. I can fix that now. Maybe add some details, some things to the covers as well. I don't think I want it to be identical, and I might have said something else literally a few days ago, but I have very recently just hit that point with art where I've gone, oh, I can do this now. So in many ways it would maybe be a bit of a missed opportunity if I didn't take advantage of that, if nothing else. I also finally have a really cool idea of how to make the back covers look less plain. They're fine as is, but they are fine. I think the more eye-catching, the better with stuff like that. And the same goes for the spines. I'm not so sure with what I want to do with the spines, but browsing in Waterstones lately, I'm realising just how important a good spine is, and it's not something I've done a good enough job with. I'll admit that. I didn't do a great job at that, and that's something that I now have the opportunity to improve on, so I will. Beyond that, interior art is something I can do a lot more with now too. I like the concept behind the chapter headers I had, and it looks great in Mr. Nakagami. I love the Mr. Nakagami chapter header. Black Executioner, again, not so much. And again, it's on me, the silhouette is just not clear enough. It just doesn't quite work the way I wanted it to. I know pretty well what I want to do on the chapter headers front. There are also 2 other kinds of internal art that I could have had and ultimately didn't. And the first of those is title pages. I couldn't think of a good concept for one, and that's a shame. Now I have time to do that. I have the beginnings of some ideas, especially for Mr. Nakagami. The one really glaring one for me, though, was not having custom scene break marks. I have some really awesome concepts for Shadow on the Snow. I've had those for ages, but I couldn't get a good one for Mr. Nakagami in time. It was Knife Edge. I did have something, but ultimately I decided not to run it. I didn't want to spoil a really good book with a lackluster scene break mark, especially just given how many there are. There are a lot of scene breaks in Mr. Nekogami. I've always regretted not having a scene break mark. Not having a title page, that was fine, but not having scene break marks, I was genuinely quite disappointed about, and that was something that I actually wished I'd done, so now I can, and I'm actually genuinely really glad about that. The bottom line is this. The determined ones will return. There will be a reincarnation. I will get that done as quickly as I realistically can. I'm not going to give you a date, I'm not going to say, oh yes, all 8 books are coming out in 2032 months apart. I would love that. I truly don't think, truly and honestly, I don't think it will be all that long, in the grand scheme of things, until the determined ones is ready for reincarnation. It'll look a little different outside and in, and I might have pure white hair by then, guys, it's going. It's going fast. It will reincarnate stronger and reincarnate better, no matter how it's published. Whether it's self, whether it's another indie pub, I'd say whether it's... I'm not even going to say whether it's trad, because it's not going to be trad. It's not, I don't want to wait that long. Never say never, but the odds of that are so astronomically unlikely, and I never really wanted trad anyway. Not for this. Trad for some novella in the future, for something like Such Beautiful Skin? Maybe. But for this, no. This isn't gonna go trad. Release order might be different. It might be, I don't know. That's not a decision for right now. As for City of Tiny Lights, I know a lot of people are really looking forward to that one, myself included. I absolutely adore City of Tiny Lights. It's one of the best things I've written in a long time. There are a lot of reasons I pulled that, is the long and short of it. And to be honest, the big one for me is actually the nature of the V anthology itself. It's full to the brim of fantasy. I think I might have been the only non-fantasy piece in the listing. There was some poetry that was originally listed in there, but it came through a Slipstream lens. And for those that don't know, Slipstream is some kind of weird subgenre of sci-fi fantasy blend. The reason I tout that as such a big problem is because of the nature of City of Tiny Lights. It's a funny position in terms of genre. City of Tiny Lights is a thriller with a dribble of blood magic in it. There is a very good reason I badge it that way. It is narratively thriller, very strongly. It is not narratively fantasy. Next to a whole load of fantasy, and the reader expectations that will come with that, because City of Tiny Lights was not the first bill in the anthology either, it was somewhere in the middle. It would have looked like dark fantasy, which it isn't, fundamentally. And what that means is, people will read that and go, oh, that's bad fantasy, when it's not a fantasy story, and it's not trying to be, and it's not intended to be read that way. So people get an entirely wrong impression of what that story is. And that's a huge problem. It's not just a problem for the piece itself, either. It's a problem for me as an author, I think. I am not a fantasy author. I don't want to be seen as a fantasy author, either. I'm a multi-genre author. Sure, I write thrillers, I write noir, I write horror, and yes, I do write fantasy. That is something that happens. Hypoxemia is as good an example as any, and it's well documented on my channel. There's a whole episode of the podcast where I world build for it, where I talk about how much I hated drafting it, because my god I hated drafting it, and all sorts of other things surrounding hypoxemia. This is actually insane how many hypoxemia episodes of the podcast there are. However, I have never, ever, and I do mean ever, since I seriously started writing, all the way back when I was 16 and I still looked like this minus the white hairs, or at least most of them. I didn't plan to publish anything fantasy that I wrote back then. The only time I would even consider publishing a full-on fantasy story is by the time I have an extensive catalogue of dark literature. Read that as a dozen pieces or more. It would look like an outlier, and that is by design. It's because it is. There's a reason the Full House is set up the way it is. For those that are hearing about this for the first time, because I'm aware this might be the first time you've been on my YouTube channel, the Full House is my suitably pretentious list of writing goals. The suits of the Full House are different genres. Tricks are different POV and tense types, and so on. It's all sort of built around this idea of a deck of cards and card games, because that makes sense in my weird pretentious brain. There are 4 suits in the Full House. They are the thriller suit, the horror suit, the grit suit, and the quill suit. The first 2 are self-explanatory. The grit suit encompasses broader dark lit, so that's noir, that's mystery, that's tragedy, etc. That sort of vein. The quill suit is where things get a little bit looser. That's broadly things that aren't necessarily dark lit, that are usually a bit of genre blend, but things that you wouldn't be surprised to see from me. So that's things like vampire, like political comedy. I do actually have a project in political comedy. And literary fiction. I've talked at length about how much I love literary fiction, and if you've read something like Mr. Nakagami, it's probably not that much of a surprise that I would consider writing something like literary fiction either. Then, outside of the suits of the Full House, that we have the Joker pack. This is where the crux of this whole image thing is. Jokers are the things that you would not expect me to write. So this is where you get sci-fi and sports romance. Yes, I genuinely have an idea in sports romance. And fantasy is also here. You wouldn't expect me to write fantasy. At any opportunity I talk about fantasy, I talk about how much I hate it. Like, it's not a secret. All of these things are explicitly put on the fringe of the Full House. I do not want to be seen in that light, because that is not who I am. As a person, as a creative, that is not me. That's the entire point. With where City of Tiny Lights was situated, in the V anthology, I ran the risk of being seen in the wrong light way too high. Like, I was just not comfortable with that one bit. Not least because Count the Stars has already been published. Yes, it is part of the Determined Ones, it's sort of extension material, but it is also Slice of Life. You can make the case that Slice of Life is either Quill or Joker, but either way, it's closer to the edge of what you'd expect from me than not. And that matters if the only 3 pieces people are going to know me by, when the V anthology comes out, 2 of them are over here. The Full House is starting to take on its own identity beyond this sort of pretentious writing goal list thing. It's looking like it really will actually become its own short story collection. It's something I did think about from the very beginning with that. That's something I thought about in the very early concept stages of the Full House. Stay tuned. But that is priority minus 963. That's something you might hear about in the future, but that is a long way off. That is kind of everything for now. There are writing-related announcements still in the pipeline for me. I am not going anywhere. If I have to blaze my own trail, so be it. It's not the first time, it won't be the last. Now that I have some more time on my hands, there's a chance I might get back into game dev again. That would be cool. You actually, put that to great use. The Determined Ones will be reincarnated. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but there are ideas, and they're pretty solid. I mean, real talk for a minute here. The whole concept and idea and how everything in the determined ones might look as of today when I'm recording this is a lot clearer and a lot more cohesive than it was when I went into Spark Pit back in the day. Make of that what you will. Keep writing. Never give up. And farewell on your path, and may you find peace upon it.